Hello and welcome back to Connected. As always, we have a packed issue for you. I am joined in the studio by Alice O'Leary, one of our newsroom reporters, and we are discussing plenty of stuff, including big new jobs announcement from OpenAI. We'll also be chatting with Eoin Hinchy, co-founder and chief executive of Tynes, one of our tech unicorns here. They have big news announcement that came out on Tuesday, which is about them pivoting the company to go all in on AI. What does that mean? Well, we'll let Eoin tell us about it in a short while. Thanks for joining us again. I'm in the studio here with Alice O'Leary, one of our newsroom reporters. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Charlie. How are you?
How are you doing? I'm good, thanks. It's an exciting week. We're starting off. It may be the middle of summer, but the news doesn't stop. And no more evidence of that was needed than news that OpenAI is going to create hundreds of new jobs in Dublin.
Exactly. So the ChatGPT maker on Monday said it plans to create 250 jobs in Dublin over the next 2 years, which they said was kind of in order to meet rapidly growing demand from users and customers and developers. So it's leased the tropical fruit warehouse offices in Dublin, and that's now going to become the new home of its EU headquarters. And that spans 88,000 square feet. It's going to support a growing workforce. So it's a pretty massive job kind of hunt, I suppose, on the back of the fact that there seems to be kind of a growing amount of AI jobs that are being that are hiring at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the property they've taken, TikTok, was originally going to be taking over that space as well in the tropical fruit warehouse, and they withdrew plans from it. I think it was 2 years ago now. Yeah. You know, and that shows. I mean, our colleague Donal McNamee, he had a piece in the weekend about before the big OpenAI announcement, saying how OpenAI and Anthropic were luring away companies from employees from big tech employers like TikTok, Meta, and so on. And in fact, there's figures here. I'm just looking at the piece he had here. I think was it something like 60% of hires that the companies have had, that both OpenAI and Anthropic have made locally, have been former big tech employees, you know. It's
massive. And yeah, through that LinkedIn analysis, Donal found that, you know, they're doing it through massive pay packages as well. Anthropic is advertising salaries of between 165 grand to 355 grand, like absolutely massive. But as you said, it's interesting because we know a lot about, and we've talked a lot about before, that hiring spree that happened in Dublin and other pockets of Ireland as well, Cork, with the likes of Apple, Google starting to land in Ireland. It seems now that shift is more and more towards AI now, rather than the traditional big tech that we know of for so long.
Sure, and it makes sense. I mean, you know, Anthropic also announced 200 jobs recently as well, so they're growing their footprint here, and it makes sense. I mean, if you're at a big tech company and you're looking at future-proofing your career, are you going to be staying at somewhere like Meta, or are you going to be looking and kind of going, well, all the focus is on AI, obviously, I want to be there, and that's probably where the most exciting roles are as well. Would you want to be working on frontier models, or, you know...
And it also comes across, I suppose, as well, on the backdrop of a lot of tech job cuts that we've seen as well in the last couple of months. So it does kind of, I can see why it can be attractive to some, but it's an interesting one, and it just comes to the exact time that we're talking about this intake of AI jobs. So we'll see how it goes, but it might be on the way up now.
Yeah, it looks like, I mean, this is not the place to do a kind of come and get me call, but like, come and get me. I would say anyone working in tech would be quite happy to work with OpenAI, Anthropic, and so on. You know, they're certainly leading the pack in terms of where tech is at right now. But talking of which, it's big tech earnings seasons.
Absolutely. So very busy week now this past week, Charlie. So Tesla, Intel, IBM, Alphabet and ServiceNow are all updating us with their fresh quarterly figures. And next week, I believe we have, or this week even, Microsoft, Meta, Apple as well.
And Amazon as well.
And
so
Amazon,
that's all the rest of them really outside of Nvidia then, which I think is a week later. Yeah.
So it was some of the standouts, I suppose. The Alphabet, the Google parent, that they recorded a near 300% surge in its net profit, which is absolutely massive. Again, AI-related investment came to the forefront of that. Meanwhile, on the other end of the scale, if you will, IBM didn't do too well, as we discussed last week. The chief said, we faltered. It cut its full sales outlook and its shares are plummeting, as we spoke about. And, then on the other hand of the scale as well, Tesla's earnings missed expectations a bit. So, the main focus I think that we discovered and a lot of the market discovered over the past week on those earnings was the ramp up in AI spending, the ramp up in capital expenditure, and how investors, as you wrote about, are maybe actually turning their back on it, which once would have been some kind of maybe more of a draw. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it was a period not that long ago where just saying that you were going to up your spending on AI was taken by the market as like, that's a fantastic signal. Wow, they're so bullish. We need to be in here.
Yeah.
And now investors are very much like kind of going, you're increasing your spending again? Like more CapEx on AI? Where are the results on this? Which is, I think it is a real year where people are kind of going, where's the return on investment? And interestingly enough, Alphabet did say, we're doing a bit better because of AI. So AI is starting to come and start hitting in terms of, helping to grow revenue numbers but not by nearly enough as what the market wants or expects, An interesting flip to that, of course, is Intel, which, we all, as I wrote the other day, I mean, it was considered a lame duck. It was like, really, it's going to be sold for parts. This was only like a year and a half ago, and it was like, will Qualcomm buy a bit? Will Nvidia take a bit? And it was really like, it's just, it's gone. I mean, and obviously the impact on Ireland, we were all kind of concerned about that because 4,900 employees here, it's a huge, big marquee client for us in the company for IDA Ireland. And now, we're seeing the turnaround. We are seeing the impact of the turnaround. We've had, obviously, there's a new CEO in place, Lubit Tan. There's also investment from Trump administration, SoftBank, Nvidia as well. We are seeing that turnaround. The market couldn't get enough of their results the other day. Yeah,
so it's an interesting one to see how it'll play out. And again, it's not the end of the tech earnings. As we said, we'll have more now this coming week. So we'll see what is kind of revealed with that. And I suppose in other news, Charlie, Samsung has come out with a line of new products. So they've revamped its foldable phone lineup. So they're now offering 3 models, Flip 8, Flip Z Fold 8, Z Fold 8 Ultra. It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
But, I think it was actually this week last year that I reviewed the, I think it was the Fold 7 by Samsung, which I loved. And that even at the time last year was like really innovative. I couldn't believe it. And everyone that I was showing was like, oh my God, wow, you can open up. And it seems to be something that's kind of getting more popular. Obviously, it's, phones of this kind of type have always been kind of released by the likes of Huawei or Huawei, whatever.
Huawei,
and whatnot. But between Samsung and Apple, the trend is pretty huge, it seems.
And interesting, Huawei have a tri-fold phone out now because 2 screens, I mean...
It's never enough.
It's never enough. What are we, animals? So, I mean, that's kind of where the market's going. But it's really interesting because, Google as well has played in this space for a while, the Google Fold, which I had for a while on loan to review and, a great product, And what's really interesting is it's really high end, it's premium. These are not cheap products. But what's interesting is like for a while it was kind of seen, I think, as very gimmicky.
It was
something the real nerds were going to go over. But Apple, what Samsung has got in early because we're expecting the first foldable phone from Apple to be announced in September. I think it's going to be at their big woohoo. Here we go. Here's our new products range. But interesting, I have figures here from IDC, which is sort of the main research firm which covers the shipments in this space as well. And they were predicting in December, they issued a report which they said they expected foldable smartphone shipments to grow 10% this year to 20.6 million units.
Wow.
And that's even before we've got, the Apple, with Samsung as well, the trifold, it's really a market that's growing, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of the sort of middle ground is, a lot of the Chinese manufacturers are in that space and doing very, very good smartphones for a decent sum. I think if you really want to kind of go, look at me, here's my fashion statement, here's my, I have a lot of money, the whole sort of signals that are out there, you want to be showing off your foldable. So I think it's going to be a space where we just see continued growth in this. It will obviously, it's manna from heaven for these companies because it is premium and you can charge a lot more. I think some of these go for like 1,800, pushing towards $2,000.
Exactly.
So let's say we'll see more from that in the near future. Now, I'm going to be back in a second with a quick chat with Eoin from Tynes. Now, I'm joined in the studio by Eoin Hinchy. He is Chief Executive and Co-founder of Tynes, one of our most promising tech companies, tech unicorn no less as well. Now, Tynes has gone all out on AI. Like the company formerly known as Intercom and now known as Fin, it has bet the bank on AI by pivoting the firm to become an AI-first product. We're going to talk now to Eoin and find out what exactly that entails. Eoin, tell us about Tines. You started off as a sort of low-code, no-code automation platform. I suppose some of our listeners might not know what that is even. So if we could start off there and then maybe tell us about, your news that you just announced yesterday on Tuesday, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome, Charlie. Thank you for having me. So as you said, I founded Tines in 2018, having previously spent about 15 years working in big technology companies across a range of kind of like technical roles like security, IT, etc. And we founded Tines to build a platform that would allow non-technical people automate the repetitive parts of their jobs. And so this was a privilege that was kind of previously reserved for people that knew how to write software and code and write their own tools, etc. And our belief was that if you empowered people who worked on the front line with the tools and skills that they needed to automate their own jobs, magic would happen. And I think it's safe to say that we've been really successful in that regard. We, as you said, our last valuation was well over $1 billion a little over a year and a half ago now. We're 450 people worldwide. We've got offices here in Dublin, Boston, San Francisco, and Sydney, Australia. And we fairly quickly established ourselves as the de facto platform for mission critical automation. Many hundreds of enterprise customers. We're doing 1.5 billion automated actions on behalf of our customers every single week. And we have more than tripled the number of enterprise customers we have year over year. So business was booming. Things were going really, really well.
So I guess the key thing is then people would kind of go, why mess with the recipe?
100%. And I think, this is classic innovators dilemma stuff, right? Like the business had never been healthier. We had done a massive fundraise. We felt really, really good. But you have to remember that we founded Tines before large language models existed. And our mission as an organization, as a business, has always been to power the world's most important workflows. And the best way we felt to achieve that in 2018, 2019 was through the creation of no-code, low-code automation for mission-critical teams. And the whole concept behind this was to create an interface that allowed non-technical people to build automation, to essentially create software. And we had to develop a bunch of incredible new innovations in order to achieve that. But skip forward to 2022 and large language models are released and artificial intelligence begins to kind of like enter the public consciousness. And this completely changed the way people were able to create software. And so instead of having to use a no-code, low-code interface that required a bit of adoption and an element of a learning curve, people were empowered to use natural language. So you could go from having to understand, what our inventions and our specific language was to just talking like the way you talk. And these large language models would then go and create code. And although the business was absolutely booming and we were flying, we really felt that this was the future. That this ability to just describe in natural language what you wanted and have AI then produce the software was so obviously a better, more efficient way of doing it than we had created 5-6 years ago. And when you see something like that and you begin to experiment with it and see the results firsthand, it's not a question of like whether we should do this. It's how quickly can we do it and what's the best way we could set ourselves up for success.
And then, so was it, it sounds as though you've sort of reimagined the company, I suppose, in somewhat similar circumstances, maybe to Finn, as the company we know as Intercom, which obviously, bet everything on AI and kind of went, this is the future. And it's an extinction event, essentially, if we don't go with this. Did you have a similar sort of feeling of like, if we don't do this, someone else will come and do it and put us out of business? Or what was you thinking? Or was it just that you just went, even if that doesn't happen anytime soon, this is the future anyhow, and we've got to back this horse?
Yeah, I think Intercom and Finn is a really good analogy. For us, it was less about the competitive dynamics and less about what somebody else might do, and more for us, what's the best way we can operate to help our customers do more and get more value from the product. And so, yes, no doubt somebody at some point would have built something similar to what we're releasing today. But for us, it was more a case of this is so obviously an incredible lever for our customers to get more value from this technology. We have to do it. And when you think about it like that, it's more about you in the driver's seat rather than kind of like paranoia of what the market is going to do. And so what we did then was, rather than kind of like bet the entire company on it, we said, well, let's kind of like experiment first and let's see if this is even achievable. Because sure, on the surface of it, this seems like something that'd be possible. But until you actually test it and until you actually begin to develop an experiment with technology, it's really hard to say whether or not it's going to work. And so about this time last year, we took a handful of our most talented folks and essentially locked them in a room. And we said, don't come out until, the product's 100 times easier to use, 100 times faster, and 100 times quicker to adopt.
Nothing like that kind of pressure to get results.
yeah. But also, I think with these types of things, you have to give talented folks the freedom to experiment and to fail as well. And the bet was very much like, if this works, amazing. But if it doesn't, no big deal. And that's always been our approach, honestly, with AI. I think we had something like 70 failed experiments before we released our first AI product. And so we've always been very comfortable like testing these things, trying it, and being very intellectually honest with ourselves whether or not these experiments are working, or whether or not what we're producing is actually going to add value to customers.
That makes sense. And tell us, so the new platform's called 3B. Tell us when you first when your guys first started to see results that you kind of went, right, we're onto something here. And I suppose how it's developed from there to the platform that you've just come out with.
Yeah. So we started experimenting with it about this time last year, sometime kind of last summer. And we had a small team working on it up until about Christmas last year, I would say, Christmas 2025. And the team were experimenting, exploring, testing, etc. And what's interesting about 3B is on the surface, it's not that different to using some of your existing AI coding tools like a Claude Code or a Codex. Really, the value that we're adding isn't necessarily in the building of the software. It's all the guardrails and harnesses around it. These large language models have essentially made everybody a builder. Like every person in every company can now produce software. And that is so different to the problems that we were solving 5 years ago, which was that nobody could produce software, generally speaking. And so now the challenge isn't how do you create this software, it's how do you ensure that the software that's being created is secure, is scalable, that IT and security have visibility into it, that it's connecting to the right systems at the right times with the right permissions. And so what 3B does is it takes this ability for everybody to produce software and wraps it in this kind of secure harness and ensures that people on the front line are empowered to go and solve their own problems, while security and IT can say with confidence that this software is being managed, it's secure, it's scalable, and if it breaks, we'll know about it. And when we kind of had this great realization was probably shortly after the new year. And there was a number of technology breakthroughs that we achieved kind of over that Christmas period. And that's when we had the confidence to say, okay, we've got something here and this is going to work. Even though there was a ton of stuff we had to figure out and a lot of kind of unknowns to solve, we had enough confidence in the technology breakthroughs that we said, look, let's go really all in on this now. And we began to move more and more of our internal resources, our engineers, our marketing team to focus on 3B.
That's fantastic. And tell us, what has the reaction been? I mean, some people embrace change very, willingly. Others are kind of like, I'm not so sure. How was it to get the whole company on board and also to get customers on board? I mean, I know you've had a oversubscribed beta, so that suggests that the market is very hungry for this.
Yeah, for sure. I think, we've been releasing software for 8 years now. And in terms of the demand and pull we're seeing, I've never seen anything personally like the demand we're seeing from existing customers and from the market. So we're extremely bullish on the impact this will have and the value it'll add to customers today and future customers. in terms then of how the company kind of reacted, you're absolutely right. Some people were all in from day one. They're just like, yeah, this is amazing. I totally see it. Give it to me now. And then other folks were kind of a little bit more practical and pragmatic and like, well, how are we going to do all these things? And what does this mean for me in my role, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing that we try to do, which is generally how we approach all these kind of large fundamental change management projects internally, is we're just really honest with people. And we said, look, we don't have all the answers. We don't exactly know what this is going to mean for every role and every single team across every single region. But what I can tell you is that this is why we're doing this. These are the reasons we're investing in that. And I think that honesty and that transparency, it kind of engenders a lot of trust across the team and across the company. And then, when you see customers building incredible things and using the products in beta to kind of transform and kind of like massively accelerate their adoption of the technology, the proof is really in the pudding, and that kind of solves a lot of those problems. And all of a sudden, people aren't quite as worried about the minutiae of their day to day when they see just this massive tidal wave of success coming our way.
That's amazing. And so with this, I mean, it seems to me that since you guys started, you and Thomas started, I mean, you were ahead of the market. When you came out, I remember the reaction immediately. You raised a significant sum on your earliest raise, and the market was very much like, oh yeah, these guys, we know these guys, we trust these guys. There was a great reaction to the appearance of Tines, if you like. And that's continued. The marketplace seems to really like you. What does this do in terms of maintaining that sort of position as we are the company to trust in terms of, all of this work that we're doing?
I think that remains our secret weapon, honestly, Charlie. The platform that we built, the technology that we've created, don't get me wrong, it's groundbreaking and it's innovative. But, there's probably some YC company, Y Combinator company out there that's probably working on a similar platform. I think the differentiator and our secret sauce remains the fact that we have been delivering for 8 years for some of the largest, most demanding enterprises on the planet and have a history of making them successful. And so we're taking the technology and then we're combining it with this pedigree of delivering at scale for some of the most demanding companies out there. And that's kind of like, that's honestly the hard part. The hard part isn't developing the technology. It's helping your customers adopt it and ensuring that they get value from the product over a long period of time.
Yeah. And so last question is, in terms of, from your existing customers, there's already a lot of welcoming to it. What about the market as a whole? Are you expecting this to go down very well?
Yeah, I think, I mentioned in an answer to a previous question that we had aimed to make the product 100 times easier to use, 100 times faster, and 100 times simpler to adopt. I think what's also interesting about 3B is that probably 100x's our TAM, our total addressable market, where all of a sudden, we've gone from only being a platform that could serve people who had a degree of technical capability. You didn't need to be a software engineer to get value from Tines, but you did need to know like a certain degree of technology jargon, and you had to have some degree of technical ability. With 3B, that barrier to entry is now flat. And so literally every single person in every single company can get value from 3B. And so as a result, I just think that it's going to serve an order of magnitude larger number of people. So as you can probably tell, we're pretty excited about the whole thing.
It sounds like it. And I guess you're excited to see what companies do with it as well. Is going to be great to see.
Yeah, that remains the most thrilling part of my job, Charlie, and has been for like the last 8 years. When you build a product like this, where you're creating essentially like a toolkit and you provide it to people to then go and solve their own problems, the way that they use their know-how and their like masters of invention to go and create things that you never would have imagined, it's just so thrilling. And it's a real kind of like privilege to get to see people use your tools to solve their own problems in these inventive, creative ways.
Excellent. Well, come here. Best of luck. I think it's going to go get a good reaction, and look forward to chatting to you again. Thanks ever so much for joining us, Eoin.
You're a gent, Charlie. Talk to you soon.
That was some exciting news from Eoin there. we're going to finish up with one last thing. What do you have for us this week?
So, Charlie, the US tech website GeekWire, you're probably familiar.
Absolutely.
Had an interesting article that caught my eye about the digital detox craze. So, they were reporting that nearly 40 people in Seattle in the US are taking part in this month offline 35-day challenge, basically, where they're going to swap their smartphones for dumb phones, in quotation marks, and meet for weekly support activities. And I've seen glimpses of this outside of the US, of people buying flip phones and ditching their smartphones.
Yeah, the old Nokias that were, the indestructible,
the Nokia
last you
Nokias,
forever.
they're coming back. They're coming back. And it takes the detox, I think, to a whole new level, because it completely regresses entirely back to the basics of a phone that just calls, texts, and maybe has a camera if you're lucky.
Yeah.
But, I wonder, as it's an interesting one, as useful as it sounds, and probably very good for the likes of a lot of people's mental health as well. I wonder if it's just a trend, or will it become more of a movement of sorts? But it's an interesting one, and I've seen kind of pockets of it recently as well.
Yeah, and do you know anyone that's done a digital detox?
One.
Would you do it? How would you feel if we kind of went, here's your work phone now?
I think my workload would be cut significantly in half. But,
so you're blaming work for being online and looking at TikTok at 4 a.m, right?
But it's a good idea. I think it's hard to, again, it's like it's attached to people's arm. It's a very kind of it's so ingrained in people's lives now. I would probably struggle now if you gave me a flip phone and to deal with this for a month. I would find it quite difficult, which probably speaks to maybe why I or more people should do it.
Yeah.
But I wonder, I would wonder if there's any results that come from it. Would it have an impact? Would you're getting you're getting no notifications actually, basically. You're spending less screen time. It's all the kind of tick boxes that people need these days to be kind of digitally healthy. So I wonder if it will take off. But it is an interesting. Would you be able to do it?
I don't know. I do try to do things. I would struggle. I use work as an excuse to kind of go, well, obviously I need to be looking online because the big news story breaks late in the day and that kind of thing. But I have started to try and do things like, I'm a big reader. I love reading novels. And I have done things where I put the phone the other side of the room and it's like, right, I'm going to sit here for half an hour and just read my novel. And if I do that, it doesn't always succeed. But I was reading a piece, I think The Atlantic had it. And it was basically about almost like the death of long form writing, that people don't have the concentration span anymore to read long pieces, whether that's a long article, let alone a novel, and it was like, is the novel under threat because people just aren't wired that, you can't sit there for more than 10 minutes on doing one thing. And we see that, say, with the second screen syndrome, which we're all guilty of watching Netflix whilst also drifting through our phone. And that now Netflix has responded to that by doing things like, look, you remember we just did this thing in the film script to remind people so that they'll look up from the phone and kind of go, oh yeah, look, there's a chase. Well, I know why they're chasing,
Insane. And I think it's even really bad for myself and for a lot of people that I know as well on TikTok. When I'm watching a 10-second video, I'm holding down so it's 2x speed to watch a video. And that is just so bad. I can't just sit for 10 seconds. So I think it is definitely an epidemic of sorts.
But, and also with that, AI is obviously having an impact as well, because they're saying, I was reading a piece just yesterday about AI becoming the third partner in a relationship, which is there's you, your significant other, and then your partner. I'm thinking ChatGPT's your significant other. Hopefully not. And hopefully that will never be the case. But, what's that? Anyway, that's us for this week. Thanks for joining us. Great to have the chat, Alice. And we will catch up again next week. See you soon.
Thank you.